Okay, let's begin. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Judith, Mr. Petrozzi, Mr. Velardo, and members of our distinguished staff. Welcome to those viewing at home. For those viewing at home, we have kind of a bit of a choppy meeting this evening, and I'm going to try and take you through it. So here's the order of operations for tonight. We're going to spend about 10 minutes out here in public session. Then I'm going to ask for an executive session, and I'll read the reasons why at that time and hopefully have support of the board. At 6:30, we will come back out here to have a very short safety plan public hearing. I'll then do my updates to save some time because I believe the public hearing on safety will be short. At 7 o'clock, Julie and Becky need to have the public hearing on the budget, which should also be about 10 or 15 minutes. And then at the conclusion of that, we do have 4 resolutions, board members, for you to vote on that I'm going to go through right now so that you have a complete understanding. We'll then conclude our executive session, and for members of the board and for members of the public that may be watching this, when we return, there will be no action taken as a result of the executive sessions that the board will hopefully approve us going into in a few moments. So we'll be back on at 6:30 for public hearing on safety. Updates from myself then, 7 o'clock the budget, 7:15 4 resolutions, and conclusion will go back into executive session. Members of the board, there are 4 resolutions for you this evening, and 2 of them are bids and acceptance of bids. The bids are for an electrical contractor that has been de-scoped to be the appropriate lowest bidder. The contractor is named CIR. I believe, Earl, they're out of Grand Island? CIR is a company, board members, out of Grand Island. They've done work for us in the past. They are a very good contractor. The second contractor will be for all of the HVAC work. That contractor is D.V. Brown. D.V. Brown has done a tremendous amount of work for us as well. So those will be the 2 contracts we'll ask you to approve, hopefully. They've been de-scoped by our construction manager. Everything is contained inside their bid. All of their bid is good. They're ready to start work tomorrow. And of course, they will follow the project labor agreement that we've set up with our trade unions. In addition to that, members of the board, Action 201 is to purchase a vehicle, a multi-purpose vehicle. I think we mentioned this to you last week. Now, there was some confusion from a viewer who watched your board meeting. That multi-purpose vehicle can be used by a number of people. It could be used only outside of the school, not inside the school. Right, Mrs. Dunn? It can be used for maintenance. It can be used for security. It could be used, as Mr. Velardo has alluded to in the past, transporting handicapped individuals. But the other vehicles that we have of this ilk are getting a little long in the tooth. And we did have, from your 2018 referendum, $20,000 remaining. So we are closing the books on that vehicle purchase. And it is to buy what we know as a, how would you describe it, Earl?
The trade name is like an easy-go.
An easy-go golf cart kind of situation.
UTV.
But please know that will be for a multi-purpose use, not inside the building, but outside the building. And the final resolution that we'll ask you to consider this evening is really for Ms. Glasser. Judy, again, continues to plan for an impeccable election on May 16th. And she is juggling election inspectors. She's had some pull out, she's added some. So this is to appoint additional election inspectors for the 22 polling sites that Judy will direct and command that evening so that they can get paid and are certified election inspectors after they perform their duties on the 16th. So there are just 4 resolutions tonight. 2 of them are contracts, very important to our American Rescue Funds and to Bleneva Bond and to Calfus and to Niagara Falls High School. They're paid for out of the American Rescue Funds. One is to buy a utility vehicle out of a fund that we had from 2018, and one is to help Judy add some additional elections inspectors. Those are the nature of the resolutions that we're asking you to support at approximately 7:15. Please know that I will do my best to do my updates between the safety hearing and the budget, because I do have a number of updates, and I'll try to be very efficient with those. And from there, we'll adjourn back into, we won't close executive session, Mr. Petrosi. We'll keep it open, because I do believe for the executive session items, we're going to need more than the next 47 minutes. So unless there are questions on anything that I said, I'm going to ask for an executive session for a couple of reasons that I will state according to the appropriate form that is permissible under motions of executive session, under the laws that govern such. And one is matters pertaining to litigation between the Niagara Falls City School District and multiple entities all around the Child Victims Act. The second reason that we would be entertaining an executive session would be for contract negotiations around 3 units, all governed under the Taylor law that protects discussions around contracts. So those would be the 2 reasons. Again, no action on either of those 2 items would be taken as we come out either at 6:30 or at the conclusion of the evening. But for those reasons, Mr. Petrosi and members of our school board, I'm asking you to consider at this point an executive session. Yes.
Motion by Mr. Valero, second by Mr. Cadella. Call the roll, please.
Aye.
So we'll close the public viewing window now, Wes, and at 6:30, we'll come back out here for our public hearings.
Flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Judy, would you call the roll, please?
I will. Mr. Bass. Ms.
It's public hearing, we don't do prayer.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Bilson. Mr. Consemi is excused. Mr. Capizzi.
Excused.
Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Cadella. Mr. Pareto. Mr. Velardo. Mr. Petrosi.
Here.
7 present.
If you'd like to do a prayer, we'll do it at the next one, Nick. We can do it at the next one, it's fine. Okay, I'm going to refer to Mr. Laurie.
Yes, thank you.
You give us the overview on the code of conduct.
I will give you the overview, and I'm going to ask Ms. Massaro to approach the microphone to also assist me. As required by New York State Education statute, this evening we need to have two public hearings. The first one we are going to do is regarding the comprehensive district safety plan. And despite having a zillion jobs, Ms. Massaro also assists and is a member of our district safety committee and helps lead the district safety plan and code of conduct, which she'll describe what transpired, who was on it, and 2 changes that were made to it this year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laurie. Who's going to be moving the slides? All right, so you could see the committee here. I would like to acknowledge our teacher on special assignment, Tom Fisher, facilitates the committees. The members are listed here. Under the law, we're required to have stakeholders, their administrators, representative from the Niagara Falls Teachers Union, district-wide administrators, the chief of police, the fire chief, the director of security, and then importantly, students and parents, and they're all listed there. The committee met in person at Niagara Falls High School. Both plans were reviewed and minor changes were made. And here are the recommended changes. Language was added for the Niagara Falls High School PTE program, and additional language was added for the youth mental health first aid training, which was added under staff trainings. The recommended changes made to the code of conduct, language was added to clearly prohibit recording individuals without permission using electronic devices, such as cell phones, and posting the recordings on social media. And those were your changes.
So what I will comment on beyond Maria's report is that the comprehensive safety plan and code of conduct has been reviewed multiple times by that representative committee. It has been looked at year after year. Things do change from time to time. We have added a pathways program in the high school, which you're very familiar with, and it's being very successful. And one of the most reoccurring and disturbing things that are happening frequently during fighting is that other students were recording it and sending the video outside. And in order to back up our ability to impose discipline, that language is now included in the code of conduct, that it is inappropriate against the code of conduct to make such recordings. Beyond that, the unions, the safety director, the fire chief, the police chief felt that those plans were in good stead and that no other changes needed to be added or included for the safe and fair operation of our school. So those are my comments. Ms. Massaro, any other comments?
I have no other comments, Mr. Laurie, except that, as you mentioned at the outset, the next steps after this evening are we receive the public comment, and then you formally adopt them, and then they are sent to the appropriate state authorities and logged on our district website.
And you will not be asked to adopt them this evening. I think that will come
Yes, later.
later in the month or at the June meeting. So we have to do this by July 1st, but we did want to present that to you today in the form of a public hearing. And now, Mr. Petrosi and members of the board, I believe the public can comment on the safety plan or the code of conduct.
Okay. Now, I have a question for clarification. Can they speak on the whole safety plan or just the amendments?
The whole plan.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. Okay, I have one speaker, Gloria Dolson, 1502 Ontario Avenue, on suspensions. So as long as it's related to the code of conduct, I'll allow it. But it will be 3 minutes. I'll let you know when there's 15 seconds left.
Praise God. Okay, God bless. Thank you all for allowing me to speak, but now I need some clarification. But my concern was in the dress code realm, which has to do with the wearing the blankets. I thought that was really kind of dangerous. You know, when you have students, now I've seen them myself, wearing blankets as a means of clothing. So now if something happens in the building, you're wrapped in a blanket. Now, I don't know if we are truly aware of it, but even coming to Niagara Falls today, I seen 3 students on the way home wrapped in blankets. So, you know, that was one of my dearest concerns, because I feel though a student, if you dress the part and look the part, then you will automatically know you're in school. It didn't look like you were in school. Even though you left that building, you seemed like you were still in bed, you know? So that's my comment. Thank you. God bless.
If I may ask,
Yeah.
what is the answer to that question? Are they allowed to come to school wrapped in a blanket?
We have a student appearance code, and that is part of the code of conduct, that would prohibit only the type of clothing that could potentially be a danger. So it would have to be up to Mr. Laurie and the principals to make a determination regarding whether, as Mrs. Wilson has appropriately noted, coming to school wrapped in a blanket would cause a danger to the student in the school.
So, I think there are 2 answers in my mind, and I think it's a appropriate point for this forum, by the way. I think if that were to be a cause of disruption throughout the school to the appearance code, and I may argue that it would be, that that student would have to have that removed and wear appropriate clothing. Where I'm not sure, because I don't have the code of conduct or dress appearance policy memorized, and the fact that blankets may be a new thing, we may need to look to add that as a specific word, because somebody literally could challenge us and say it doesn't say that. So I think what I'm hearing from that comment is that we need to, before we ask you to approve this in future months, review the code of conduct and add the word blanket as a distracting piece of clothing so that the administrators, STRS, not just at the high school but our other schools, would be able to recognize that that could become a distraction.
Go on.
And when we do that, can we make sure that we have coats or like a sweater available?
Yes.
Because some students are doing that because they don't have them.
Yes, absolutely. And just as a little bit of a foreshadowing, on the 17th of May at your board, we're going to talk about our closed closets. So I think it'll tie in nicely. And I think I understand your point, Mr. Bass. We could correct the behavior, but provide the proper outerwear so the student can stay in school and conduct their daily business. Yes, sir, I will add that.
Yeah, well, that's basically what I was going to ask, whether the kids were wearing the blanket to school because they didn't have coats, or that they were using it as dress apparel in school.
I think my answer, because I saw someone actually.
In the building?
No, I saw someone walking down the
Yeah.
street, and I
I
don't
didn't
know
know
if that individual was going to school or not. probably should have asked, but they were wrapped in a blanket, and I didn't stop to ask if they were headed to school. They appeared to be older, but we will do two things. Make sure that that word appears in the code of conduct as a potential distracting force, and that make sure, and you'll hear it on the 17th, make sure that there is appropriate outerwear so that student doesn't need to miss any instruction as long as they're willing to. Put the blanket away and put on an appropriate jacket.
Because in the school, it would be a tripping hazard and everything else. It would be very dangerous.
It sure
going
could
up and
be.
down the stairs.
It sure could be.
Yeah.
Could be a hazard, it could be distracting, it could be caught in the door. So it's kind of interesting how things and times change. Yes, it is a different look. So we will make sure that that word is added, and that we'll instruct the administrators to enforce it with the goal of providing alternative wear so that they're not sent home and missing instruction. Okay?
Anybody else?
This is under the safety plan. How are we doing with our security officers? Are we staffed pretty well, especially at the junior high, or the middle schools and the, or prep schools and the Niagara Falls High School?
I believe, and I'll let Ms. Massaro address it, I believe we had one out on injury who has returned to the high school, and I believe we are fully staffed to the level that we left. Maria?
That is correct. We do have a resignation upcoming in our safety officer staff, but we today received information and cleared pre-employment somebody to fill that vacancy. So we are doing very well ensuring that our staffing stays at a certain level.
Next is a second part to the same security officers. What is there, are we able to staff it pretty easily versus the possible hourly wages, you know, that kind of teetering offset type thing? Are we able to do it pretty available, you know, wise?
Yes, and I mean this with all sincerity, although it's going to sound like I'm being funny. Mr. Lurie had the foresight to see how important it was for us to ensure that we were fully staffed with safety officers. So he gave the directive to us, and we all worked with CSEA to ensure that we were able to increase their wages to the point where the position is attractive to individuals who want to come and work in our district.
I will share with you, Mr. Prettle, the board, and the public, and I know Ms. Jacqueline and Ms. Holliday will confirm this. We have paid our safety officers to date, collectively, $104,000 in overtime to staff safety beyond their regular schedule. So while the safety officer staffing rate in our last contract negotiation was increased, they have received, through our tracking of overtime, $104,000 beyond their salary in overtime pay. And all of that was money well earned. To the point where on Saturday I was watching our softball event and baseball event, not that we anticipated any problems, it was fully staffed with safety officers. I know at the meat raffle, again, not to call anything out, but there were, and I know Mr. Villardo, they were standing near you, there were a cadre of safety officers. And I don't want the public to perceive that we anticipate problems there, but we are very, very liberal in making sure that our guests, both as students and staff and community, feel safe with seeing the yellow or blue shirts on. So it's factual that we spent 20% of our overtime budget on safety officers.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Motion to adjourn the public hearing? Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Tony. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Petrosky, we have 10 minutes until the next hearing, and if it would suit the board and be acceptable, I would like to do my updates now to save some time, and These are some, hopefully you'll find really good pieces of information. Of course, we wish your colleague, our board member, Mr. Consemi, good health. And I want to wish good health to your father, Russ, Mr. Petrosi, who I know has been struggling a little bit lately. And I will say it on record, one of the finest men ever in this city. And I hope that he lives another 15 years. And I want to extend my prayers to him and you because he's just one of my favorites.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. We had a event Saturday called Walk the World. 48 different countries, 600 guests, including students and parents, visited between 11 and 2 o'clock. It had, as I said, 48 different countries stationed there, sampling food, dance, culture. It was amazing, amazing. I'd like to thank Mrs. Capone and Miss Mallory Leo, one of our ENL teachers, along with all of the people who put that together. You could go from having Pakistani delights to pierogies to too many Italian cookies that I ate, but it was a wonderful, wonderful event. I'd like to tell you that this Saturday in Hershey, Pennsylvania, our band and chorus came in first place in 6 categories, 6 trophies for our band and chorus. Yes. A young gentleman named Christian Scarfone placed in first place in the solo jazz performance. And that is awesome. We just sent a cadre of teachers and students in middle school to Dallas, Texas. They'll be returning today. Here's the results, and there are tens of thousands of participants. We took 1 3rd place, 2 6th place, and 1 9th place in the world. So that is great. Again, I would like to congratulate a softball player from Niagara Falls High School. Her name was Ava White. She was the Channel 7 Super 7 Athlete of the Week, which is also great. And these are just really announcements for your edification and updating. Tomorrow between 5 and 7 p.m. at Niagara Falls High School, the return of the District Art Show. So if you have a moment, stop by and see the District Art Show between 5 and 7 p.m. It is going to be our art teachers and art students from all schools. That is Thursday, May 4th. Thursday, May 4th, my bad. Next, the New York State Teachers Union has appointed a new principal that's nice, a new president that's nicest. Her name is Melinda Person. Melinda with Mr. Weiss visited the district a couple of weeks ago. They visited with the Niagara Falls High School and they visited with Bond. Completely impressed with what she saw at the high school and at Bond. In her inaugural address to the 1,500 NYSET members throughout the state, minute 21:30 of her inaugural address, I watched it last evening, she cited Niagara Falls as a cutting-edge, innovative district for the programs they were doing in their PS2 program and the school spirit of the students at Beneva Bond. So I was really happy to hear a new person say that. Tomorrow, Wednesday at 3:45, there will be a ribbon-cutting ceremony to begin the building of the High Park Playground. The equipment is here. They're ready to break ground. We'll have a ceremonial ribbon-cutting event that'll take about 10 minutes. And then High Park will be the last school to have a playground. I missed this when I was going through the litany of great things that happen at Niagara Falls High School. We compete against 30 schools in chess, the game of chess, which is a really good tool for kids. So we're in the Western New York Interscholastic Chess League. This year we finished in second place in chess. Nickel School beat us out. Our chess team is very young, a lot of freshmen, sophomores, so we're hoping to recapture the chess championship again, but second place for Niagara Falls High School is pretty good. I received this, and I'm going to ask Julie Dorr to take it and have it framed. This is a beautiful painting that was done by 3 students at Abbott School during their social emotional learning class and art. Brandon Carter, Valentino Porter, and Robert Bryce. This beautiful painting they made of the falls that they wanted to have displayed at the boardroom. But I thought it was a really nice painting that 3 students made for you. We'll have it framed for your boardroom. And I wanted to thank teacher Mrs. Anne Marie Maloney, Principal Tompkins, and those 3 students for doing that. It's pretty good work. A couple of other things as I close down my updates. Tomorrow, don't forget, at Antonio's at 6 o'clock, the official program will start for the Niagara Falls Education Foundation, in which a young gentleman who is doing great things in our community named Sanquin Starks is being honored as the emerging leader. Sanquin is doing a program called 716 United with boys and girls basketball. He deserves it. He's a 2003 graduate of Niagara Falls High School. And then, of course, there is the adult leader of the community, and that's Mr. Petrozzi. He is a what year? 75, I'm sorry. Just had a slip of the brain. 75 graduate of, I was getting him confused with somebody else. Mr. Petrozzi is a 1975 graduate of LaSalle. The gentleman is one of the most giving people that we know, and a great board member for over 20 years, and on and on and on, and I won't say much more, but he is also being awarded tomorrow night. We appreciate you, Russ, for all that you do. And 20, you can applaud for him. 20 Niagara Falls High School students will be receiving checks from $1,000 to $2,500. Let me do that again. 20 Niagara Falls High School students will be receiving $1,000 up to $2,500 scholarship checks at that dinner. I want to thank especially Niagara Falls High School again and 79th Street. They've been participating in Bald for Bucks, which I think is really cool. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. Interesting phone call I received today from the VA, or the Veterans Administration. The VA out of Buffalo would like to come to Niagara Falls High School, and Mrs. Villardo will make it happen with Mr. Del Porto, to observe our safety protocols. They've heard about Evolve and all the things that we're doing, so I just thought it was different. Not only schools are coming to visit us, but the VA, or the Veterans Administration, is coming to visit Niagara Falls High School. We will have a vaccination clinic at Bond Primary this Thursday, put on by the Niagara County Department of Health between 3 and 6. And finally, I want you to be aware of this because I have received a number of phone calls from the media in the last hour or two. The Section 6, and next week the league will vote to allow our basketball team to go back to becoming an independent scheduled school. That's something that the basketball coach asked for and that our athletic director promoted. That will allow our basketball team to compete against the highest level of competition in New York State. And that is for 4 years. They will be playing the top schools around New York State, and they're going to travel, I believe, to South Carolina because of the upcoming prowess of our basketball program. And I was quick to say that we had done it before. The board certainly supports higher level competition. And the only thing I said when I asked if there were any other comments, I said, Keep an eye out for our girls' team in basketball. They're going to be coming up pretty good too. So we may be going back in a couple of years for our girls, but I want you to know that the section and the league approved that.
What about the rest of our sports teams getting out of that? I mean, we talked about our football team and softball and baseball and everything else.
Yes.
Is that still on hold with Section 6?
It is on hold, Mr. Velardo, but thank you for bringing it up. I have been asked by the members of the Buffalo School Board, by their president, Ms. Sharon Belton Cotman, who some of you may know, to come and speak to you with regard to Section 6 and future athletic opportunities. So what I'm hoping to do in the next couple of months is have the Buffalo board meet with our board to talk about some different opportunities that we can do together, because our students are very similar. Sometimes our students are treated inappropriately in a similar way, and I think there are some commonalities between our district, their new superintendent, who I have a great deal of admiration for, and their board president, who I really like a lot, not as much as Mr. Petrosi, but I like her a lot. I would like to come and speak to you, gentlemen and ladies, about some things that we can do together as school boards. So, Earl?
While we were in Orlando, Tony and I went to a session, and we actually made contact with someone from downstate who is aware of some of the issues that Section 6 is just notoriously a problem. He gave us his information. I can give that to you because he said he would be willing to talk to us and give us some guidance on how to navigate some of those problems.
I'd love to connect with him. I think if you read the paper over the weekend, you would see that I'm going to miss the school. I want to say Lake Shore, but I could be wrong. Lake Shore had a problem with some of those same issues that we had with Williamsville. So the only thing I would tell you is that we've forged a nice relationship with North Tonawanda, where we do inter-school activities. Next year, we're expanding that to Lewiston Porter and Niagara Wheatfield to do inter-school activities. So that's coming up on the horizon. Mr. Petrosi, that's all I have for my updates this evening. A lot of good things going on, and now I believe it is time for a public hearing on the budget.
Thank you, Mark. Let's call the public hearing for the 23-24 school district budget to order, please. Judy, call the roll, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Bass.
Present.
Mr. Wilson. Present. Mr. Kinsemi is excused. Mr. Capizzi.
Here.
Mrs. Dunn. Here. Mr. Cadella. Here. Mr. Pareto. Here. Mr. Velardo.
Here.
Mr. Petrosi.
Here.
8 present.
Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Before I ask Becky and Julie to smartly and swiftly to go through this presentation, I want to tell you that today we had a chance to analyze the governor's budget to a degree. And here are some of the things that we found, which I think are really good. Number one, our projections, even with a little give and take, are right on the money. Right on the money. We didn't receive less, we didn't receive more. They're pretty close to being right on the number. A little bit of shifting, but we're there. Secondly, I'm not sure if you recall this, but there was a category called grades 3 through 8 high needs tuition. And in our budget, it was for $1.5 million. That has been removed and put on the revenue side without any restrictions. That's wonderful news. Next, wonderful news, and I know Maria gets very excited about this. The requirement for school employees to exceed the $35,000 threshold to come back to work has been waived for another year. Next, Julie and Becky will jump up and down with this. The duplicate reporting for transparency report has been eliminated. Next, not all the way there that we hoped, but the electric bus reporting is still there, but I do not have to assess the power grid, like I'd have any clue how to do that, to assess the power grid for readiness. That was removed. We still have to report on the electric bus progress. And the rest of it, your deliberations were really right on the money. So with that, Becky and Julie is your name? You are going to go through the budget very quickly, and then we'll take any comments.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Mark, while they're getting ready, can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Could you find out how many gallons of fuel we use in a year for buses? I'd just like to see how many gallons of fuel we're
Sure.
gonna take out of the atmosphere, or however you want to read it, and the multi-millions of dollars we're gonna spend.
I will find it out for the next meeting.
I appreciate that. You know, round number, it doesn't have to be exact.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start. This is a very similar format that we use every year. We start with our tax levy history. As you can see, it was stable for 20 years, a slight increase in 2014, and again, it has remained stable since. This year, we are proposing no increase to the tax levy again. Our budget history, last year we operated with over 153 million. The current budget is at just under 165 million. Our proposed budget for the voters next year is $181,504,208, increase of $16.5 million, which represents 10.1% of an increase. But a lot of this, as you'll see, is we're bringing back people from federal stimulus funding that is part of that increase. Without that funding shift, our increase is 7.7%, which is underneath the consumer price index of 8% at this time. This budget also allows for no loss of staff or programs. We can actually expand on both. And we are adding technology with new projectors, computers, wireless access points. One of the biggest items in this budget is continued improvements to the Community Education Center. And we are doing that in the form of a fire suppression system for Maria and a new boiler plant. And it's a multi-use building. It's used by a lot of the community, so it's needed work, and we have the opportunity to do it this year. Okay. And this is a look at the revenues in the budget. Now you can see our tax revenues are the local revenues. It's your property taxes, interest and penalties paid on such, and tax on your consumer utility bills. Next is our state aid. This is our biggest portion of revenue. The foundation aid, as we knew it at the time we adopted the budget, was at $112,886,001, and that has changed slightly based on the legislative runs that we were receiving today. And the overall state aid, though, is coming in very similar to what we have budgeted. Again, some shift between the lines of where the aid is going to be paid through, but we're sitting in a good place that we're going to receive that volume of aid. The other revenues that we receive are miscellaneous revenues. They are refunds from BOCE. We get Niagara County money for our CPSE, our early preschool special education administration costs. We get refunds for that. We get Medicaid reimbursements. Interest has gone up on our savings. So those are all of our miscellaneous revenues. And our fund balance and reserves this year, we're planning to use $750,000 of a debt reserve, which is money that we received in the form of premiums on previous year's debt, and we are using it in the subscribed manner. The total revenues, are $181,504,208. This slide just demonstrates the revenue in a visual format. Again, you can see most of our money does come through state aid. Again, some revenue highlights, state aid, the 17.1 million overall increase from year to year, that remains in place. The amount of foundation aid will shift slightly, and it's basically 15.7, but our transportation aid, our BOCES aid, those other aids are shifted upwards, and we're still in a good place. The 1.3 million is expense-based aids that will be going up slightly in the new run. Our use of reserves, as we said, is the $750,000 from premiums. Our miscellaneous revenues are increasing about $350,000. Our federal stimulus money remains in place for another year. We have that money to still spend through September of 2024, and that's a separate budget, and we have plans how to take that through to the end of the funding cycle. Again, all this with no change to the tax levy, so we're in a good place there. And now we're looking at expenditures. By law, we have to report the expenditures in a three-part format: administrative costs, capital costs, and program. Administrative are your administrative staff, of course, your principals, vice principals, clerical staff. It's our liability insurance and all of those other administration costs. Capital is the maintenance of our plant, and its salaries, all of our utilities, supplies and contracts. The one line I do want to make sure I point out here are the capital improvements. Again, we are using general fund monies to make improvements at the Community Education Center, a new boiler plant, and fire suppression system. Our debt service payments are our mortgage payments. There's benefits that go along with the staff in that. And now the program side is, of course, the biggest spending. There we have the teaching of regular school at about 44 million. Our special apportionment is our special needs students, special programming, supplies, contracts, and tuitions paid to outside agencies or to charter schools. We have our transportation costs, and again, the corresponding benefits. The program portion makes up just under 68% of our total spending. Capital is just over 20%, and our administrative costs come in just under 12%. Oh, sure.
I'm looking at the salaries. Let's take administrative. $1.4 million in salaries, and fringe benefits, 5.2 million.
No, but you're missing, there are other salaries down below, the $6,076,000, and the
Oh,
clerical
I got
line,
it.
the 3.5.
So
There are
six.
3 different categories of salaries in that,
So we have, what do
category.
we got, 1.5? I see all the salaries add up to 11 million. So we are around 40 to 50, almost
Yep, that's
50%.
average. Yep, we're
Okay.
we're over 40% average for benefits, and that's standard. It's about that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
leave that one alone.
Okay. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. And then this is again the 3-part spending in a visual format, just so you can see how much is spent on program versus capital and administrative costs. This is expenditures by type. So overall, salaries and wages are just under $74 million, which makes up about 40% of our total spending. Then we have benefits at over 38 million, debt service is 17 million, transportation just under 11 million, our utilities are just over 2 million, tuitions just over 12 million, BOCES services, we spend about 14 million each year with BOCES. Other is a combination of contracts, equipment purchases, insurances, supplies, things like that. And our capital improvements, again, is on a line by itself, so we can be totally transparent that we are making some improvements to the Community Education Center with general fund money. This is the expenditures by type in a visual format, so it just is a nice way to see it in one place. Highlights on expenditures, again, salaries and wages, the increase is 3.9 million. As you move down, we also had in there the high impact tutoring, which the superintendent reported we probably are not obligated to do. That money will be redistributed as we move through the rest of the budget work that we will do between now and July 1st. And again, our transportation contracts are based on the CPI. We're getting new technology. We're making improvements to the Community Education Center. And then there's just contract increases that are standard contracts. A contingency budget would occur if we do not get a majority positive vote from the voters. We only need a simple majority, and that's just over 50%. If we were to work with the contingency budget, it's important to understand our tax levy wouldn't be unchanged because we are not increasing the levy. So a contingency budget would have no impact on the levy. It would still be $25,828,989. What would happen is we would be limited to who we could transport. Right now we transport elementary students greater than 1 mile. We would have to go back to the state standard of 1.5 miles. It wouldn't necessarily save in costs, but we would be serving many fewer students. We would not be able to offer student supplies that they should be able to purchase themselves. We would not be able to purchase equipment like the technology, or we would not be able to do the improvements at Community Education Center. That would be a total reduction of $2.1 million. Okay. And the next slide. And this is the contingent budget based on administration, program, and capital. Again, contingency budget would not make any change to the administration portion. It would be reducing our spending in the program and capital side of, again, $2.1 million would be reduced in the budget, and yet our revenues would remain stable at the higher amount. Okay, this is the property tax report card, which you approved in April. It's just in the public hearing again, so everybody has this information. It shows the budget. It also shows what we were allowed to increase the levy by based on the tax cap, which is the $37,607. It shows our estimated enrollment for next year, and it also shows our estimated fund balance and reserves. We expect our reserves going into next year to be just over 27 million, which is a reduction in the current year because we are utilizing 550,000 this year of a debt reserve from a premium. Our unrestricted fund balance, we anticipate to stay unchanged at what we currently have in there now, at the full 4%. Next slide. This just shows the reserves and our anticipated spending. As you can see, we have workers' comp, we have the debt reserve. There's no anticipated use except for the debt, which we've explained. The next slide. These are our other reserves, our reserves for retirement and pensions and for long-term liabilities. We plan to use none of those reserves. This is our budget notice. This will be delivered to households this coming week. This is also prescribed by the state. The middle column shows our proposed budget. the total amount, and it shows the contingent budget to the right. If you look, it shows the reduction in spending, it shows the percentage increase of the proposed budget and the contingent, but the important part is on line E, where it shows what the tax levy would be in all of those scenarios, and the tax levy remains stable. There is no impact on the levy. The other information below is, again, information from the property tax report card and the tax cap calculation. And down below, again, it's the budget broken out into those three major components. Second page of the budget notice just shows what the average star savings is for the average household, $394 per household. And it also just informs the voters of the time to vote on May 16th, 2023, between the hours of 11 and 8 at all of the general election polling sites. Okay. And we are mandated to inform voters that we do multi-year contracts with the bus companies. However, reflected in this budget is only the amount we are spending for the 23-24 fiscal year, even though they're multi-year contracts. And this is the salary disclosure. Again, by state law, we have to inform voters of certain salaries for administrative staff above a certain threshold. So we can, next slide. This is the tax exemption impact report. This is provided by the city assessor, and it just displays all of the exemptions that are offered in the city and the amounts of the impact that it has on our total assessed values we use for our tax rate. And that's the rest of the exemption impact. And then the proposition the public will be voting on just asks, shall the Board of Education of the City School District of the City of Niagara Falls be authorized to expend the sums set forth in the proposed 23-24 budget in the total amount of $181,504,208 and to levy the necessary tax. Again, the vote is May 16th, 11 to 8. If you have questions, please contact the district clerk, Judy Glasser, and I appreciate your time and attention.
Just want to, first of all, thank you, Becky and Julie, for putting this all together. It hits every single expected point of the state so that we're fully compliant. I want to just digress a moment and say, look at the new time of voting, 11 to 8. It's an hour shift. It provides the requisite number of hours, but it is a little bit earlier in the day and earlier endings so that we'll have results a little bit earlier. That is a full remote day for students. The reason being that 8 of our sites are used as schools, and we do not want to risk safety for the children on that day. And I do want to commend Judy, and I hope, Judy, I'll articulate this correctly, and you check me. We are mailing out 28,043 postcards tomorrow. That will tell each voter, each eligible voter, which one of the 22 polling places to go to. There is a little bit of potential confusion because of redistricting in the legislative maps, but anyone who is a school voter votes in the same place. They've always voted for school voting. Correct, Judith?
That is correct. Those will go out, mailed from Rochester tomorrow. So within the next few days, voters will see them.
So I just want you to know we will be doing that just because there were some lines that were drawn different for the legislative districts. So we're using a belt and suspenders approach to mail those postcards. Judy will also distribute 461 absentee ballots tomorrow as well. We encourage everyone to exercise their duty and right to vote on the budget and to candidates. And we thank you all for all the work you've done. Mr. Petrosi, if there's any questions or comments, we take them now.
Anybody, I do have one, if anyone. You're up there, Mr. Cadella.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
how is host community money by NIPA determined? Do you know that?
Yes, I do, but you want to answer, Becky?
Okay, I don't know how it was determined, the amount that we get.
A long time ago, I think in
Right.
2003.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was determined back in 2003, Mr. Massaro? 707? And the Power Coalition got together. Earl, you want to chime in?
Well, I know it was determined at the original FERC relicensing. Determined amongst all of the FERC relicensing agencies that were there, meaning Town of Lewiston, Niagara Falls, Town of Niagara,
Niagara County,
Niagara County,
the Niagara Wheatfield School District.
Niagara Falls City School District. I think there's 7 or 8 of them.
No,
And
the Niagara Wheatfield, Lewiston Porter, and Niagara Falls School District. The county, the town of Lewiston, and, who am I forgetting? The town, town of Niagara, thank you. Those were the entities that got together and did something in 2007.
right, well, it was all part of the whole host communities thing when they did the recycling and pardon me, relicensing. And when they got together, my understanding, it was a function of how much taxable property was taken away by the New York Power Authority
Correct.
and
Yes.
how it affected each municipality.
That number is set in stone for
50 years.
50 years.
50 years. And we apply, just so you're aware, Mr. Cadella, we apply a great deal of our host community money toward the debt service of our fields. We used a combination of some state ed available money for those fields that was allowable, and the money we received from the host community to pay off those fields so as not to charge the taxpayers to build them. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. We do have a little bit of money in that in reserve in the bank right now, don't we? We have a couple $100,000 in reserve, but that's the formula, and I think it's 16 years. It's 33 years away from expiring. Other questions?
Go ahead, Mike.
I just have a couple questions. You know, if you don't know the answer to this, if you just give it to me, that'd be great. If you just look under the basic 23, 24 projected expenditures by type, is there a comparison analysis to any Western New York school districts? Like, is our percentages in line as far as salary and wages, you know, benefits, debt service in general? Is there something available to the board on that? If not, we don't have it, you know, if there's a way.
Just as our information's public, so is theirs. So we could do that research for you and bring it to you at the next meeting.
Sure, that would be great if you could
Okay.
do that. Then under benefits, does that include pensions or is that just current? That includes it? All right, and then just one more thing, under the tax exemption impact report, this is the first time I've seen that. Religious Corp, 179, does that mean that those are 179 properties in the city that are registered for exemption? Is that what that is?
Going back to what you've done, Mike?
Yeah.
I'm just piggybacking on that last exemption. So there's 12,044 exemptions in the city? Am I reading it right?
The
And
total count, yes.
total count, and the assessed, and the total, the value is 1.6 billion? I'm just following the totals. Land value and the total assessed value. Does that mean there's 1.6 billion of property off the tax rolls?
No, that's the total assessed value, and then to the right under the exemption amounts, those are the exempted amounts there. So that last column, so village is 0, if you look to the left, school, so the total school exemptions.
Can you put that on the screen, Ray, maybe?
Is 1.2 billion. Okay, so we got 1.2 billion
For the school exemption.
off the tax rolls for nonprofits. Or,
Thank you, Ray.
pardon me?
The star is also.
Stars in there also, okay.
Yes.
Do we happen to know what the total number of assessments in the city, would you know that? I'm sorry, I know.
We could get it.
I'm just curious what it is.
City exemptions. I'm making notes of that so that they can have it by about 9 o'clock tonight. I'm kidding. 9 tomorrow.
Anybody
morning.
else?
I'm kidding.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We might need you if there's any public comments, or is anyone from the public wish to comment? Pardon me?
Nobody signed up.
No one signed up? Okay. Saying that, motion to agenda, thank you.
A motion, sir?
Thank you, folks. Could I have a motion? You guys got questions, or you good? Can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing? Thank you. Move. Second. Thank you, Mr. Cadella. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public hearing is now ended. We will move into our special board meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. We said the pledge to the flag. Mrs. Dunn, would you like to say a prayer? Sure. Yeah.
Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us all to see another day, as many did not. Please continue to heal the sick, protect us in your care in the midst of troubling times. For God, we know that you are still in control. We praise and honor you for who you are, dear Lord, as we all say thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Judy, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bass?
Present.
Mr. Bilson? Present. Mr. Consemi is excused. Mr. Capizzi? Here. Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Here.
Mr. Pareto?
Present.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Here.
8 present.
Thank you. Public comment, anyone want to speak on the agenda items? So be it. 1.05 bids, we have approval of bid number 5 for electrical, and 15, I'm sorry, and approval of bid number 15 for HVAC for our capital projects. Motion by Mr. Preto, second by Mr. Bilson. Questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Yes. Mr. Capizzi?
He left the
Mrs.
room.
Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Bids accepted.
Thank you. We'll take 2.01 and 2.03 together, or 01, as approval of the award of the New York State Office of General Service contract, and that is for contract for the one Toro Model 8102. And the next one is for project bid 15 of the American Rescue Plan. And the last one is bid number 15 again for HVAC construction project, again from the ARP. Motion, please. Mr. Velardo, Mr. Bilson. Questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Capizzi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. Cadella?
Yes.
Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Thank you. 2.04 is the approval of the appointment of additional election inspectors. Thank you, Mr. Bilson, Mr. Pareto. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
Mark, any other reports?
Yes, just very briefly, our next school board meeting will be on a Wednesday, May 17th. At 5:30, we'll have a presentation for you on the McKinney-Vento students in the district, followed by our clothes closets that were referred to earlier, followed by a new report that Becky and Julie have to give to you with regard to how we're going to spend our foundation aid, followed by an agenda review of a couple of resolutions, and personnel will ask you to approve that evening. That would happen at 7 o'clock. I don't anticipate a large number of resolutions. I know of a few, and I'm sure Maria will put together some personnel. I also would tell you that we need you to stay at 8 o'clock that evening for a vote to certify the board members and the budget that evening. So there will be a voting meeting at both 7 and 8 on Wednesday, May 17th, 2023. It begins at 5:30 with some review topics, 7 and 8 with voting and public speaking, and that will be the close of our May meetings. And then we go back to our famous Thursdays, and those come back in June. That's all I have for you, Mr. Petrosi and members of the board. Thank you for your support of all of the resolutions and the forums. We appreciate you, and we do need to continue the executive session with no action to be taken afterwards for the same reasons that we articulated at 5:44 p.m. today. So that is still open, and of course, staff does not need to attend the remainder of the executive session.
Okay, board members' information, Mr. Bass, Mr. Cadella, Mrs. Dunn, Mr. Velardo, Mr. Bilson.
I do. I didn't speak last time, and Nick tried to bully me into not speaking, and I didn't. But I'm going to speak today. I'm going to speak today.
All right, here we go.
Thank you for the wonderful job, all of you, on this budget. A lot of work went into this. You should be proud of yourselves. Well done. Well done, Mark, you and the team. I think this is a sound budget. We should be proud of it, and so should the community. Well done. Second, you mentioned two things, Mr. Starks and 716, and our girls varsity team. My daughter is part of that girls varsity team as an 8th grader, and she joined 716 in the off season. She's currently playing with Coach Jay in that program. And I just wanted to tell everybody listening that I am proud of that program. I'm proud to have my daughter a part of it. I'm thankful for Mr. Starks and everyone involved because she's become an unbelievable person because of it. She's a wonderful athlete to begin with, but this has made her better basketball player. It's going to be great for all of our kids, and kudos to Mr. Starks in that program. And thank you to everyone, including Mr. Velardo. Have a wonderful evening.
Well, it's all of her mother's talent. It's mother's athletic talent.
Thank you, Rob. Tony, anything?
Yeah. Okay, no thanks to that. I'm not bullied, but I will say a few nice things here. Again, team, great job with the budget. A great job to also our friends on the law side, plus Maria, putting other things together that enables us to carry on with our work. Again, if you have time to run out to the Art Fest, please do so. Congratulations to the robotics team. I mean, we have quite a list. Congratulate to all of our students, the chess club, the athletes, the artists. God bless them all. They work so hard, and it's so nice to see us have some good news. You know what I mean? Not that we have a lot of bad, but we've got a lot of great in this district. And I'm so proud to serve this district. I'd like to make this on a little more of a personal note. Welcome back to our friend. And I know what you feel. And I've been up that road just a little while ago, and I want you to know something. You're not alone. And if you ever need it, I'm here for you. And I'm going to oil up my bike whenever this weather gets a little better. Maybe go for a little bike ride. Okay, my friend, and God bless you, and many, many more, another 100 good years of, all right. And thank you.
Thank you, and I'll just say ditto to all those items, and I really greatly appreciate it. When we will adjourn tonight, and the member of Noki Williams, a student at Niagara Falls High School, saying that, I'd like a motion to go back into executive session. Move second by Mr. Capizzi. All in favor? Okay, back opposed. Good night, everybody. Thank you.